Aside from your house, your pension is probably the biggest financial asset you have. Yet so many people have no idea how much they actually need to have in their pension in order to retire. And that's through no fault of their own, because nobody teaches us this. And I think the biggest problem is that we're so used to a regular income, month in, month out. And then when it comes to our pension, we're faced with a pension pot of potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds. But nobody actually tells us how much income that's actually going to give us when it comes to retirement. Now, the amount you need as an income in retirement varies widely from person to person. But typically you'll see that most people need somewhere between £2,000 a month through to £5,000 a month. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you how financial planners actually calculate the pension pot size you need in order to retire. From spending £2,000 a month all the way through to spending £5,000 a month. But if you're new here, my name's Ben and I've worked in financial services for the last 8 years. And my aim is to help as many people as possible gain more clarity and confidence around their personal finances and specifically their retirement plan. Okay, so let's actually first look at how financial planners work out how much you need in order to retire. Now, what most financial planners do is use backtesting, and simply what this means is using historical market data to actually give us an idea of the returns you're likely to get in retirement and therefore the pension pot size you need for various levels of income. Now, clearly, when you retire can have an impact on how much you need in your pension because returns you get on your pension can vary massively from year to year. So the starting point here is looking at a 100% success rate. Now, simply what this means is that if you retired at the very worst point over the last 100 years, so let's say, for example, just before the 2008 financial crisis, you could have still spent the amount you needed in retirement and your pension pot would have run out. So you can see here that based on retiring at age 65 and living through to age 95, for a balanced portfolio spending £2,000 a month net of tax, you would have required a pension pot of about £730,000 to ensure you could have survived in every market condition over the last 100 years. Now, this is the starting point and not the end result, because this is the worst case scenario. However, doing this is a bit conservative because, let's face it, most people are going to get average returns and not the worst possible returns. So what financial planners typically do is aim for about a 90% success rate. And simply what this means is that in 90 of the last 100 years, you would have had sufficient money in your pension to meet your expenses. And you can see the impact this has on the amount you need within your pension. So the amount required drops from £730,000 to £565,000. Now, clearly this is not quite as good as a 100% success rate, but a 90% success rate is still strong enough. And what most financial planners do is, if you were to retire in a particularly poor period in terms of market returns, clearly the amount you draw from your pension can be adjusted and adapted as retirement goes on. Now, the third thing to factor in is the fact that you are unlikely to be spending the same at 65 as you are at 80, because your best health is going to be when you first retire. And for most people, their health is only going to deteriorate as they go through retirement. Now, typically what financial planners see is that people spend more in the first 10 to 15 years of retirement and less in the later years. So to account for this, I've assumed that your expenses reduce by about 25% from age 75 onwards. And again, you can see the impact this has on the pension pot size required. So that goes from £565,000 to £475,000. So you can see from just those two changes alone, that's reduced the pension pot size required by nearly £300,000. But there's one more thing we need to factor in, and this is the one that makes the biggest difference. But if you are enjoying the video, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more videos just like this in the future. And that one thing is the state pension. Now, for anyone aged between 49 and 65, which is probably the majority of the people watching this video, your state pension age is 67. So that's when your state pension will commence. And for most people, this is going to be about £12,500 a year, assuming you've built up the required national insurance contributions, which is 35 years. Now, clearly this is going to cover a proportion of your expenses from age 67. So how much of a difference does that make on the required pension pot size, assuming an age 65 retirement? So the figure speaks for itself. You can see that's fallen from £475,000 to £235,000. That is nearly half as what we were assuming before. So you can see how powerful the state pension is. And this is why it's really important to check you've got the full state pension entitlement, because this can make a massive difference to the pension pot size you need in order to retire. So what I would suggest you do is get a state pension forecast. And I've left a link to this in the description below. So you can go on and see if you are on target to get the full state pension at age 67. Okay, so now we've gone through each of the figures for a £2,000 a month spend in retirement. Now let's look at the pension pot size required for each level of spending. So you can see that for £2,000 a month, that requirement is £235,000, all the way through to £5,000 a month, where the requirement is £1 million. And you can see in here, I've assumed that 25% spending drop from age 75 through to age 95. Now it's important to mention at this point that why I've assumed age 95. Now, clearly the life expectancy in the UK currently is more like mid-80s, but again, when financial planners are putting these plans in place and stress testing the numbers, they like to ensure there's sufficient money in your pension to last through to age 95. Now, there's one more thing we need to actually factor in, because these are all based on a single person and one state pension. But you saw the massive impact one state pension can have. So let's now look at a situation where there are two of you in a couple and you've both got the full state pension. How much of an impact does this have on the pension pot sizes required from £2,000 a month through to £5,000 a month? So again, you can see on screen now the impact that having two state pensions have. So you can see that if you're planning to spend £2,000 a month, that pension pot size between you is very, very little. It's just over £50,000. So that's the thing to point out with these figures for the joint situation, is that this is the pension pot size required between the two of you. And quite frankly, this does show the power of actually retiring in a couple and how much more difficult it is to retire as a single person. So you probably looked at these figures and thinking, okay, well, that's great, Ben, thanks for walking me through that. But what about if I've got other income, such as a final salary pension or perhaps some rental income? What I would suggest you do is download my free retirement calculator, and you can find the link to this in the description below. And what this allows you to do is input your own details. So your current age, how much you've got in your pension already, any other income you're likely to have in retirement, and how much you would ideally like to be spending each month in retirement. And what the calculator does is this shows you if you are on track to retire when you want with the level of income you want. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video and got some value from it. If you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more videos just like this in the future. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video.